The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 years, and in all that time, they had never once been wrong about anything important. Or so they believed with absolute certainty. 17 species sat in the great crystalline amphitheater of Station Prime, each one ancient beyond human understanding, each one powerful beyond human imagination, and each one completely convinced that the matter before them today was nothing more than a simple formality. Humanity was finished, and everyone knew it. The war had lasted 9 years, which was 8 years and 11 months, longer than anyone had expected when the hegemony first declared its intention to remove the human infestation from the galaxy. 9 years of burning colonies and shattered fleets and billions of dead humans floating in the cold void of space. 9 years of desperate battles fought against impossible odds by soldiers who knew they could not win but refused to stop fighting. Anyway, now Earth itself was blockaded by 700 warships, and humanity's population had been reduced from 40 billion to barely 3 million survivors, huddled in underground bunkers. Waiting for the end, the Council had grown tired of the inconvenience and had summoned a human delegation to formally accept the terms of their species extinction. They expected groveling, and they expected tears, and they expected the kind of broken surrender that came from a people who had finally accepted the reality of their complete and total defeat. Instead, Earth sent one-man Commander Elias Vance walked into the amphitheater alone, his footsteps echoing in the vast space as hundreds of alien eyes and sensors and other stranger organs turned to observe him. He was 63 years old, with white hair that had turned that color during the Battle of Titan, when he watched his entire battalion die in the span of 17 minutes. His left hand was cybernetic, a replacement for the one he had lost at Kepler 442 when he pulled 3 wounded soldiers from a burning transport with his bare hands. His face was lined with scars, and his eyes were the color of gunmetal. And when he walked, it was with the careful precision of a man who had learned long ago that every step might be his last. He wore the dress uniform of the Terran Defense Force, crisp and proper, but worn at the edges from years of use, because there was no one left to make new uniforms and no factories left to produce them. A single medal hung over his heart, a simple silver star on a blue ribbon called the Terran Star, and it was awarded only to those who had survived battles where no one was expected to survive. Elias Vance was the last active soldier in the entire Terran defense force. Everyone else was dead. The Valkyrie High Speaker looked down from its elevated podium at the lone human standing in the center of the chamber, and its mandibles clicked together in a sound that the translator systems interpreted as cruel amusement. The High Speaker was a towering insectoid creature, nearly 4 meters tall, with compound eyes that reflected the light and 1,000 fractured images and ceremonial silks that cost more than entire human cities had once been worth. Send one old warrior to negotiate your species' extinction, the High Speaker said, and its voice echoed through the chamber with obvious contempt. How very quaint. Vance did not respond to the insult. He simply stood at the center of the floor, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the known galaxy, and waited with the patience of a man who had long ago learned that words meant nothing compared to actions. The Rithani ambassador leaned forward in its seat, serpentine body coiling with predatory grace, and its forked tongue flickered out to taste the air around the human. The Rithani had personally ordered the destruction of 3 human colony worlds and had watched the footage of the burning cities with something that their species called satisfaction. I expected more, the ambassador hissed. I expected weeping and begging, and all the pathetic displays that lesser species usually offer when they finally understand their place in the universe. "I am not here to weep," Vance said. And his voice was steady and calm and completely without fear. "Then why are you here?" "Old soldier," the Kovathi delegate rumbled from its seat. The Kovathi were massive creatures made of living crystal, silicon-based life forms that had existed for millions of years, before humanity's ancestors had crawled from the oceans of Earth. This particular Kovathi had commanded the fleet that destroyed New Geneva, killing 800 million humans in a single afternoon. And it had done so without a moment of hesitation or regret. "I am here because you summoned a representative of humanity," Vance replied. "And what remains?" "You are nothing," the Vulthari High Speaker declared. "You are the last ember of a fire that we have spent 9 years extinguishing. And soon even that ember will be cold and dark and forgotten." "Perhaps," Vance said. "There is no perhaps," the High Speaker continued. "The matter before this council is simply the terms of your extinction. And you should be grateful that we are offering any terms at all rather than simply finishing what we started." The chamber filled with sounds of agreement from a dozen different species. Clicks and growls and strange harmonic tones that all meant the same thing. Humanity was done, and this meeting was nothing more than a formality. Vance looked around the room slowly, his gray eyes moving from face to face and appendage to appendage, studying each member of the council with an expression that none of them could quite read. The Rithani ambassador felt something strange when those eyes passed over it, something that took a moment to identify because it was such an unfamiliar sensation. It was the feeling of being measured and found wanting. "You have called me here to accept your terms," Vance said finally. "So let me hear them." The High Speaker's mandibles clicked with satisfaction at this apparent submission. "The terms are simple and non-negotiable," it declared. "Your remaining population will be collected and relocated to labor colonies, where they will serve the hegemony for the remainder of their natural lives. Your homeworld will be stripped of all useful resources and then sterilized to prevent any future infestation. And your genetic material will be archived in the Korvathi memory vaults as we do for all extinct species." The High Speaker spread its limbs in a gesture that might have been meant to seem generous. "This is mercy. Human, this is more than your species deserves after the trouble you have caused us. And you should fall to your knees in gratitude that we do not simply burn your world and everyone on it." Commander Ilias Vance, the last soldier of Earth, looked up at the High Speaker with eyes that had seen horrors beyond counting and losses beyond measuring. And then, impossibly, he smiled. "I have a counteroffer," he said. The laughter that filled the chamber was unlike anything Ilias Vance had ever heard before. 17 different species laughed in 17 different ways, and the translator systems worked overtime to convert each alien expression of amusement into something a human could understand. The Velthari clicked their mandibles in rapid staccato bursts that sounded like machine gunfire. The Rithani hissed and writhed with serpentine glee. The Kovathi rumbled with a deep bass vibration that made the floor shake beneath Vance's feet, and through it all, the old soldier simply stood in the center of the chamber and waited for the noise to die down. "A counteroffer," the High Speaker finally managed to say, its compound eyes glittering with cruel delight. "The last human soldier wishes to make a counteroffer to the Galactic Council." "I do," Vance confirmed. "And what exactly do you have to offer?" the Rithani ambassador asked, still shaking with amusement. "Your species has no fleet because we destroyed it. You have no armies because we killed them. You have no colonies because we burned them. You have no allies because no one in the galaxy was foolish enough to stand beside you." "All true," Vance admitted. "Then, what possible counteroffer could you make?" the ambassador demanded. "What do you have left that could interest us in any way?" "A warning," Vance said. The laughter returned, even louder than before the Threxian delegate. A creature that resembled a cloud of luminous gas contained within a crystalline shell. pulsed with colors that indicated extreme amusement. A warning, it repeated, its voice emerging from speakers embedded in its containment unit. You stand before the assembled might of 17 spacefaring civilizations, representing a species that has been thoroughly and completely defeated. And you offer us a warning. I do, Vance said again. Human, the Kovathi delegate rumbled, leaning forward until its massive crystalline form caught the light and scattered it in 1,000 rainbow fragments. I have crushed worlds beneath my fleet. I have extinguished species older than your entire civilization. I have done things that would drive your fragile organic mind to madness if you could even comprehend them. And you think to warn me? Yes, Vance said simply. Then speak your warning, little creature, the Kovathi said. Amuse us further before we end this farce. Vance looked around the chamber one more time, and his gray eyes held something that made several of the delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. In approximately 5 minutes, Vance said, every member of this council will have a choice to make. And I want you all to remember this moment when that choice arrives. I want you to remember how certain you were of your victory. I want you to remember how you laughed at the last soldier of a dying world. The High Speaker's mandibles stopped their amused clicking. Is that a threat? It demanded. No, Vance said. A threat implies uncertainty about the outcome. This is simply a statement of fact. You are in no position to state facts, the Rithani ambassador hissed, its earlier amusement fading into something colder. You are in no position to do anything except accept our terms and be grateful we allow your wretched species to survive at all. Your terms are rejected, Vance said. Silence fell over the chamber. The words hung in the air like something physical, something that had weight and substance and could not be ignored. Rejected, the High Speaker repeated slowly, as if it could not quite believe what it had heard. Rejected, Vance confirmed. Humanity does not accept extinction. We do not accept slavery. We do not accept the terms of those who have spent 9 years trying to murder us. You do not have the luxury of rejection, the Kovathi delegate growled. You have nothing. You are nothing. Your acceptance or rejection means less than the dust between stars. And yet here I stand, Vance said. Rejecting. The Threxian delegate pulsed with agitated colors. This is absurd. High Speaker, why are we wasting time with this creature? End the session and give the order to complete the extermination. Several other delegates voiced their agreement in various alien ways. The High Speaker raised one limb for silence and studied the human standing below with new interest. You are either very brave or very foolish, it said. I have been called both. Vance admitted. You understand that your rejection changes nothing, the High Speaker continued. The fleet surrounding your world will proceed with its orders, regardless of what happens in this chamber. Your species will be exterminated, whether you accept our terms or not. I understand what you believe will happen, Vance said. It is not belief. It is certainty, the High Speaker declared. You cannot stop what is coming. No force in this galaxy can stop what is coming. The hegemony has decided, and the hegemony's will cannot be denied. Cannot be denied, Vance repeated softly. And something in his voice made the Rithani ambassador feel that strange sensation again. That uncomfortable feeling of being measured by prey that did not understand it was supposed to be dead. Tell me, human, the ambassador said, do your people still pray? In these final days, do they still believe that some divine power will reach down and save them from the fate they have earned? Vance turned to face the serpentine creature directly. We stopped praying after Helios Station, he said. When your fleet used our own communication satellites to broadcast the screams of the dying to every surviving human in the galaxy. Ah, yes, the ambassador said with obvious pleasure. That was my idea. I thought it would help break your species' will to resist. It did not break us, Vance said. It taught us. Taught you what? The ambassador asked. That prayer was useless, Vance replied. That hope was a luxury we could not afford. That the only thing standing between humanity and extinction was humanity itself. And yet humanity has fallen, the High Speaker interjected. Your prayers or lack of prayers, your hope or lack of hope. None of it mattered in the end. The end has not arrived yet, Vance said. It has, the Kovata delegate rumbled. You simply refuse to acknowledge it, which is pathetic but not unexpected from such a young and primitive species. Vance smiled again. That same strange smile that showed no fear and no surrender. You have made an error, he said. All of you, every species in this chamber. You have made the same fundamental error. And what error is that? The High Speaker demanded. You calculated our threat level based on our fleet size. Our population, our resources, our technology, Vance said. You fed all of these numbers into your predictive models and your strategic simulations, and you concluded that humanity was insignificant. Because humanity is insignificant, the Threxian delegate pulsed. By those metrics? Yes, Vance agreed. But there was something you failed to include in your calculations. Something that your models could not account for because your species have never encountered it before. And what is that? The Rithani ambassador asked with obvious skepticism Commander Elias Vance. The last soldier of Earth looked at each member of the council in turn. You never calculated our will, he said. You never understood what humans are capable of when we have nothing left to lose. He glanced at the chronometer built into his cybernetic hand. And now you have approximately 3 minutes to learn. 3 minutes, the words hung in the air of the chamber like a blade waiting to fall. The Volthari High Speaker's compound eyes focused on the human with new intensity, searching for some sign that this was merely bluster, merely the desperate posturing of a defeated creature trying to salvage some small measure of dignity from total annihilation. It found nothing but calm certainty. 3 minutes until what? The High Speaker demanded. Until your choice arrives. Vance said simply, we have already made our choice. The Korvathi delegate rumbled. Your species will be exterminated. That choice was made 9 years ago, and nothing you say or do in this chamber will change it. 2 minutes and 45 seconds, Vance said, glancing at his cybernetic hand again. The Rithani ambassador rose from its coiled position, its serpentine body flowing with agitation. Enough of this, it hissed. High Speaker, this creature is clearly deranged. The stress of his species' defeat has broken his mind. I move that we end this farce and dispose of him immediately. I second the motion. The Threxian delegate pulsed. 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Vance continued. Apparently unconcerned by the discussion of his immediate execution, the High Speaker raised the limb and security drones, began moving from their positions along the chamber walls, their weapon systems activating with soft hums of power. Human, the High Speaker said. You will explain yourself clearly and immediately, or you will be terminated where you stand. I have been explaining myself, Vance replied. You simply have not been listening. Then make us listen, the High Speaker demanded. Tell us what happens in 2 minutes. Vance nodded slowly, as if acknowledging a reasonable request. When you agreed to meet with a human representative, he said, you scanned me thoroughly. Your systems examined every cell of my body, every thread of my uniform, every molecule that I carried into this chamber. Of course, the High Speaker confirmed. Security protocols required it. And what did you find? Vance asked. Nothing, the Rithani ambassador answered. You carry no weapons, no explosives, no communication devices. No technological implements of any kind beyond your crude cybernetic hand. You are utterly and completely harmless. 2 minutes, Vance said. And you are correct. I am not carrying anything dangerous. He paused and looked directly at the High Speaker. I am the danger. The security drones had reached Vance now. surrounding him in a ring of metal and menace. Their weapons trained on his vital organs, explained, the High Speaker commanded, 9 years ago. When this war began, humanity knew we could not win through conventional means, Vance said. Our fleet was smaller. Our technology was inferior. Our population was a fraction of any single hegemony species. We are aware of your weakness, the Corvati delegate said. It is why you lost. 1 minute and 45 seconds, Vance continued. Ignoring the interruption, but humans have a saying. When conventional warfare fails, become unconventional. When you cannot fight your enemy's strength, become a different kind of enemy entirely. Pretty words, the Ruthani ambassador hissed. They will not save you. We started a project, Vance said. A secret project, hidden in places your scanners could never find. Developed by minds that your species could never comprehend. Not because they were smarter than you, but because they were desperate in ways you have never experienced. The High Speaker's mandibles clicked with growing unease. 1 minute and 30 seconds, Vance said. The project had a simple goal. If we could not match your technology, we would surpass it. If we could not defeat your fleets, we would make your fleets irrelevant. If we could not win the war you had started, we would change the nature of the war itself. Impossible, the Threxian delegate pulsed. No species advances that quickly. Technological development requires generations, centuries, millennia. 1 minute and 15 seconds, Vance said. And you are normally correct, under normal circumstances. But you made a mistake, all of you. You pushed humanity to the edge of extinction, and then you gave us 9 years to stare into the abyss. He smiled that strange smile again. Humans do remarkable things when we stare into the abyss. 1 minute, Vance said, and his cybernetic hand opened to reveal a small display embedded in the palm, showing a countdown in human numerals. Shall I tell you what we built? Tell us, the High Speaker commanded. Though its voice had lost some of its earlier confidence, we built something that should have been impossible, Vance said. We mapped the quantum spaces between dimensions, and we learned to move through them. We developed technology that your species theorized about, but never achieved. We did in 9 years what should have taken 9,000. 50 seconds, Vance continued. Every human who died in this war contributed to the project. Not their bodies, but their minds. Their neural patterns, their consciousness itself. 40 billion humans working together in a simulated space where time moved differently. The chamber had gone completely silent. 40 seconds, Vance said. In our reality, 9 years passed. In the simulation, 10,000 years of development. 10,000 years of innovation. 10,000 years of desperate human minds working on a single goal. You lie, the Corvathi delegate rumbled. But there was uncertainty in its crystalline voice. 30 seconds, Vance said. I am not lying. I am delivering a message. A message encoded into my very cells. A message that was transmitted the moment I stepped into this chamber. 20 seconds, he continued. A message to the fleet we built in the spaces between reality. A fleet crewed by the uploaded minds of every human who died in this war. A fleet that has been waiting for this exact moment. 10 seconds. The High Speaker rose to its full height, towering over the old soldier surrounded by security drones. If you are telling the truth, it said, then what happens when your countdown reaches 0? Commander Elias Vance, the last physical soldier of humanity, met the High Speaker's compound eyes without flinching. Everything changes, he said. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The lights in the chamber flickered and went dark. When they came back on, every display screen in the amphitheater was showing the same image ships. Impossible ships? Ships made of light and folded geometry, hanging in the void above every homeworld of every species in the hegemony. The silence that fell over the council was the most complete silence Vance had ever heard, and he smiled. The screen showed everything, every homeworld, every species represented in the council chamber was now visible on the massive displays that ringed the amphitheater. And above each world hung ships that should not exist. The Rethani homeworld, with its endless oceans and floating cities, had 17 of the impossible vessels, hovering in perfect formation above its primary continent, the Kavathi Forge Moons, where the crystalline beings manufactured their war machines, were surrounded by a ring of light and impossible geometry that pulsed with barely contained power. The Velthari breeding grounds, sacred to their species for 100,000 years, looked small and fragile beneath the shadow of ships that seemed to bend reality around themselves. Every world, every species, every member of the hegemony had the same image hanging above their home, and every ship was waiting. "What have you done?" the High Speaker whispered, its mandibles barely moving. "I delivered a message," Vance said. And the message was heard. The Rethani ambassador stared at the screen showing its homeworld with wide, unblinking eyes. "This is impossible," it hissed. "Our sensors detected nothing. Our early warning systems reported no intrusions. There was no warning at all. Your sensors are designed to detect ships traveling through normal space," Vance explained calmly. "Our fleet does not travel through normal space. It travels through the quantum realm between dimensions, emerging only when and where it chooses. The energy requirements alone," the Threxian delegate pulsed frantically. "The computational power necessary to navigate such spaces would exceed the output of 100 stars. "It would," Vance agreed. "Which is why we needed 40 billion minds working for 10,000 subjective years to solve the problem." The Kavathi delegate had not spoken since the lights flickered. Its crystalline form had gone dim and pale. And when it finally found words, its voice was barely audible. "Our defensive platforms," it said. "Our orbital weapons. Our fleet." "Check your communications," Vance suggested. The delegates began frantically accessing their personal communication devices. And one by one their expressions shifted from confusion to disbelief to something approaching terror. "Nothing responds," the High Speaker said slowly. "Every military channel is dead. Every command frequency is blocked. Every ship in our fleet reports that it has lost control of its own systems." "Not lost control," Vance corrected gently. "The control has simply been transferred." He gestured at the screens where the impossible ships hung motionless in the void. "The fleet that surrounds Earth right now is under our command. So is every warship belonging to every species in this chamber. So is every orbital defense platform and every military installation and every weapon system capable of threatening a population center." "You cannot control our technology," the Rethani ambassador protested. "Our systems are incompatible with yours. Our encryption is unbreakable. Our security protocols have never been compromised." "They were compromised the moment I entered this chamber," Vance said. "The message encoded in my cells was not just a signal to our fleet. It was a key that unlocked every system connected to any network that my presence touched." "That is not possible," the ambassador insisted. "You keep using that word," Vance observed. "Possible, impossible. These are terms your species apply to the limitations of your own understanding. But humans have learned that impossible is merely a description of what has not been done yet." The High Speaker finally managed to compose itself enough to speak with something approaching its former authority. "What do you want?" it demanded. "You have demonstrated your power. You have made your point. Now tell us what you want." "In a moment," Vance said. "First, I want you to understand something." He walked slowly toward the center of the chamber, and the security drones that had surrounded him did nothing to stop him because their systems had gone as dark as everything else. "Every member of this council voted for the extermination of humanity," Vance said. "Every species represented here participated in the murder of billions of innocent people. You burned our colonies and slaughtered our children in broadcast. The screams of the dying across the galaxy. His voice remained calm and steady, but there was something in his eyes that made even the massive Kovati delegates shrink back. "We could do the same to you," Vance continued. "Right now, at this very moment, we could give the order, and your worlds would burn just as ours did. Your children would die just as ours did. Your species would scream just as ours did." He paused and looked around the chamber. "We have earned that right with 9 years of blood and suffering and death. We have paid for vengeance with everything we had. And there is not a single human alive who would not feel some measure of satisfaction watching your worlds burn." The silence in the chamber was absolute. "But we are not going to do that." Vance said. The high speaker's mandibles clicked with confusion. "Why?" it asked. "If you have the power to destroy us, why would you not use it?" "Because destruction is easy," Vance said. "Because vengeance is satisfying but hollow. Because we did not spend 9 years dying just to become the monsters we were fighting against." He reached up and touched the metal on his chest. The simple silver star that represented survival against impossible odds. "This metal belonged to my daughter," he said quietly. "Her name was Sarah, and she was 17 years old when she died at the Battle of Proxima. Her ship was damaged and losing atmosphere, and she could have evacuated with the others, but she stayed at her post to keep the enemy engaged while the civilian transports escaped." His voice remained steady, but his gray eyes showed something that might have been grief, or might have been pride, or might have been both. She knew she was going to die. Vance continued. "She made that choice deliberately and consciously, and she did it because she believed that humanity was worth saving. She believed that what we are and what we could become was more important than her own survival." He looked at the high speaker directly. 40 billion humans made that same choice over the course of this war. 40 billion people sacrificed everything they had and everything they could have been for the chance that humanity might survive. We did not make that sacrifice so we could become butchers. We did not die by the billions so we could kill by the billions. We died so that humanity could live and so that humanity could remain human. The Rithani ambassador found its voice. Though it was thin and uncertain. "Then what do you want?" it asked. "If not vengeance, if not destruction, what do you demand?" "Commander Elias." Vance straightened his worn uniform and met the eyes of every delegate in the chamber. "I want you to remember this moment," he said, "and I want you to make a choice." Commander Elias Vance stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, surrounded by 17 species that had spent 9 years trying to murder his people. And he did not feel hatred. He felt tired. He felt old. He felt the weight of 40 billion dead, pressing down on his shoulders like a physical burden that he would carry for whatever remained of his life. But hatred had burned out of him years ago, replaced by something colder and more useful, replaced by purpose. "Here are humanity's terms," he said, and his voice carried clearly through the silent chamber. The high speaker's compound eyes watched him with an intensity that bordered on desperation. "First," Vance continued, "the genocide declaration will be rescinded immediately and permanently. Humanity will be recognized as a sovereign species with full rights under galactic law. Second, our surviving population will be left in peace. No retribution, no occupation, no interference of any kind. Earth will be our world, and we will rebuild it according to our own choices. Third, reparations, not in resources or technology, but in truth. Every species that participated in this war will open their historical archives. Your children and your children's children will learn what was done to humanity, and they will learn that it was wrong." The Rithani ambassador made a sound that might have been a protest. But Vance raised his hand and continued. "Fourth, the fleet blockading Earth will withdraw within 24 hours. Every prisoner of war will be returned. Every human refugee in labor camps will be freed and transported home. And fifth," Vance said, And something in his voice made the entire council lean forward despite themselves. Fifth, you will remember. He walked slowly up the steps toward the High Speaker's podium, passing between delegates who shrank away from him as if he carried some contagious disease. You will remember this day, Vance said. You will remember that you mocked the last soldier of a dying species, and you will remember what happened next. You will remember that humanity stood at the edge of extinction and refused to fall. He reached the podium and stood facing the High Speaker directly. A mere human looking up at a creature 3 times his size. And the next time you look at the stars, Vance continued. The next time this council debates whether some young species is worth exterminating. The next time you calculate the threat level on a civilization, based on their fleet size and their population and their technology. He smiled. And it was not a threatening smile or a triumphant smile. It was the smile of a teacher trying to convey an important lesson. You will remember that you cannot calculate will. You cannot measure desperation. You cannot predict what a species will become when you push them to the edge of oblivion and give them no choice but to evolve or die. The High Speaker's mandibles moved, but no sound came out. Humans do not surrender. Vance said quietly, we did not surrender when we were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. We did not surrender when our colonies burned. We did not surrender when our children died. We did not surrender when logic and reason and every calculation said that resistance was impossible. We do not know how to surrender. It is not in our nature. It is not in our blood. It is not in the fundamental architecture of what we are. He turned to face the entire council. 17 species that had allied together to destroy humanity and had failed. You offered us mercy, Vance said. The mercy of slavery and extinction, the mercy of being archived in crystalline vaults like specimens in a museum. And we rejected your mercy because we do not need it. We never needed it. We just needed time. He reached up and removed the medal from his chest. The simple silver star that his daughter had earned with her life. And he placed it gently on the High Speaker's podium. Sarah Vance died believing that humanity would survive, he said. She died believing that one day someone would stand where I am standing and tell the beings who murdered her that humanity refuses to be erased. I made her a promise as she was dying, Vance continued. I promised her that I would live long enough to keep that promise. And now I have. He stepped back from the podium and looked around the chamber one final time. Our fleet will withdraw in 1 hour. Your networks and systems will be restored. Your military assets will be returned to your control. And you will never target humanity again. If you do, Vance said. And his voice was soft but carried a weight that made the words feel like inevitability. If you ever threaten Earth or any human settlement, if you ever harm another human being, if you ever forget the lesson you have learned today, we will return. And we will not be merciful twice. He turned and began walking toward the exit of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the absolute silence. No one moved to stop him. No one spoke. No one even breathed at the doorway. Vance paused and looked back over his shoulder at the assembled might of the Galactic Council. 17 species frozen in place by the presence of one old man. Humanity is not your enemy, he said. We never wanted to be your enemy. We only wanted to live and grow and explore the stars alongside you. But if you force us to be enemies, he smiled one last time. We are very good at it. And then Commander Elias Vance, the last soldier of Earth, walked out of the chamber and left the most powerful beings in the galaxy sitting in stunned silence. The war was over. Humanity had won. Not through superior firepower or greater numbers or more advanced technology, but through something that no species in the hegemony had ever truly understood, through will, through sacrifice, through the simple, stubborn refusal to accept that extinction was inevitable. The Galactic Council never voted against humanity again, and in the centuries that followed, the story of the last soldier became legend across 1,000 worlds, a reminder to every species in the galaxy that some enemies are never more dangerous than when they have nothing left to lose. Commander Elias Vance returned to Earth and lived quietly for another 30 years, tending a small garden outside the rebuilt city of Geneva and watching the children play in streets that had once been ashes. He never spoke of what happened in the council chamber. He did not need to. The silence that had fallen when the first strike revealed humanity's true power spoke louder than any words ever could. And somewhere in the quantum spaces between dimensions, 40 billion uploaded human minds continued their eternal vigil, watching over the world they had died to protect, ready to return if they were ever needed again, hoping they never would be, but prepared nonetheless. Because that is what humans do. They endure, they adapt, they survive, and they never, ever surrender.